legalized drugs, such as marijuana. All right. Last question. Do you support the use of school vouchers in our public education system? All right, so unanimous decision on that last one. I'd like each candidate to provide some context on their answers to these. Some of you might have different reasons for being a yes or no on these questions. So let's start 30 seconds, and I believe we'll start with John.
Can you get a question? My choice?
Your choice, whatever you like to provide additional context to.
Marijuana. I support states making it available for medical use. I would like to see the federal government schedule it to Schedule 2 and Schedule 1, from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2, because this will make it available for doctors to be able to prescribe. I think there are 20, 21, 22 veterans who are committing suicide every day. And there are some veterans out there that are making medically supervised use of marijuana to cope with PTSD and other injuries. They have gotten off of all of the bad drugs, and the suicide rate is 0. It's compelling.
Thank you, John. We're actually going to move it down to Denise. We'll keep this one going. Any of the three.
So, I believe that marriage is in fact defined throughout history and throughout our culture between a man and a woman. And so that's what I believe in, and that's why I believe that that has always been the case, and that shouldn't change or be redefined by anybody. Thank you.
Mike?
Two issues here. I'm not for the federal government defining marriage per se, because it's a state's issue. It's a situation where we have states' rights, and why would we even have a state marriage license to go by if it wasn't a state's issue? It's not something that the federal government, I think, should legislate on. On medical marijuana, I'm not against medical marijuana, but I am against the use of recreational marijuana. I'm just not for it. I see what's happened in Colorado. It's not a good thing. That's it. Thanks very much.
Thank you. I'm a true Republican, and I believe the government needs to stay out of your home. Absolutely 100%. I believe in states' rights, but the government does not have a right to tell you who you should love, who you should marry. It's not up to them. And it's certainly not up to them to impose their will on the people. And as your representative, it's absolutely my job to represent the will of the district, and that is what I promise to do when I become your representative. Thank you.
Well, I told you I spent half my career here in Coronado, the other half I spent in the Middle East. And part of the programs that I've run also, the U.S. Military All-Stars, I was selected by President Bush to rebuild baseball and all of the services I did that worldwide. I built 50 teams. Over that time, I had 30,000 players, staff, coaches, wounded warriors that we developed to move on to go into pro sports and do other things they wanted to do in business. You can imagine over all of these years, 25 years, I have a lot of these people that came through my program now that are suffering quite a bit with cancer and other things. So I have seen medical marijuana do positive things, but I don't like what I'm seeing in others.
That's all 5 of you. All right, we're going to go ahead and leave the mic with Terry. We're now going to move on to the subject of national defense terrorism. Terry, please take 60 seconds to tell us your vision for the role of the United States military in defending our nation and the current threats we face.
All right, I have a 16-year-old daughter. I have 2 sons serving on active duty in the Navy right now. My daughter has not been alive for one day of peace in this country, period. I told you I did 7 combat tours overseas. I have seen ISIS eye to eye. I've been shot at. I've been in helicopter crashes. And I'm telling you, these people pick on women and children because they're cowards. So this low state of war, all it does is help defense companies and help the government stay in business. That's all it does. So if we're really serious about ending it, we set a time, a date, and we do it. It's just that simple, or we can just rudder this thing along for 50 years.
Absolutely. Next is John.
Yeah, okay.
I want to go ahead and repeat that question one more
Yeah.
time, though. Please take 60 seconds to tell us your vision for the role of the United States military in defending our nation and the current threats we face.
Okay, there are 3 authorities that belong to Congress and Congress alone in the Constitution. The first one we're all familiar with, the authority to declare war. The other two that we don't talk much about, the authority to issue letters of marque and reprisal and make rules concerning captures on land and sea. Very first thing we need to do is Congress needs to issue a letter of marque and reprisal against ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and I would include Hezbollah and Hamas in that list. And basically open the door for special operations and even for paramilitary operations against those groups. There's another part that we can do in legislation called a classified annex, and this is something that's done in secret. I think we have to have a classified annex to the letter, and that we need to name names, and in particular, name the names of the people that are moving the money. When the people that are moving the money for ISIS get knocked on by SEAL Team 6 one night, guess what's going to dry up? The money will dry up very quickly. And then it's that third rule of concerning captures on land and sea, that puts Gitmo out of the president's jurisdiction entirely. We'll keep it open.
Thank you, John. Over to Denise.
I believe America is the greatest force for good and peace and stability in the world. And when we have a strong military, we have peace in places that might otherwise be very unstable. But power abhors a fact. And when America is not her strongest, when we are not certain, when we let people like Assad cross red lines that we've drawn very clearly in the sand, we open the door to other bad actors to step into their regional spheres of influence and exert power that is bad for humankind. These are people who do not share our values and cannot be trusted with the power that they take. And so we must increase our federal funding for the military. We must increase it so that we can again be a powerful force for good. We have been decreased under President Obama. Our military budget has been reduced to World War II levels, to post-World War II levels, and that is unacceptable. We must be able to operate decisively, and we go in and we define our objectives. We must be able to win.
I do agree we need to increase our defense spending as well. However, we need to stop this force reduction. We're reducing our ships, we're retiring planes and equipment that we should be retiring. And we're also dealing with an ROE that is just unacceptable. Having spent 4 combat tours over Afghanistan and Iraq, we have gone to the door, we've knocked on the door of these terrorists, and we haven't been allowed to follow through. We have missed so many opportunities in asymmetrical warfare, it's ridiculous. We need to get leadership and a policy going to where we target something, we follow through, and we take care of it.
All of this sounds good, but in 2003, when I crossed that line of departure into Iraq as a very young lieutenant, we crossed that line of departure without the proper tools and resources. That is the last thing I'm going to do is send our and America's sons and daughters in harm's way without armor, without the tools and resources that they need. Because I served and I lost friends. I did several combat tours, just like some of the people that are sitting up here today. I take it very serious when it comes to that. But you know what the problem is today? The root problem is that we are faced with a very dangerous movement. The first time in United States history, we're faced not only from a threat from country, but a movement. And that movement is Islamic extremism. It's not just ISIS or Boko Haram or Al-Qaeda, because if we defeat ISIS, we're going to leave a vacuum open for the next horror to come through whatever country. So we are now faced with this, and if we do not end the root cause of this problem, then we'll continue to fight it. And I just got back from Iraq just a month ago, and I saw children there that were babies when 9/11 occurred. It's disgusting that 13 years later we're still fighting this because of people like Barack Obama and his administration. When I get into office, I promise to address this, and I will never send people overseas without the tools and resources necessary.
Thank you, Jackie. Over to Terry. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that all 5?
We can all talk.
All right, sorry. I can't count the 5 apparently.
Unless you want to hear the solution.
It's been a long day. It's been a long day. Right. Let's move along to next question. This one we're actually going to start with Jackie. Coronado is home to many veterans. Give us your current assessment of veteran affairs and what, if any, reforms you would support to provide care for our veterans.
It's an extremely sad state that we're in today, and I think it was Terry that touched upon it. 22 veterans commit suicide every single day. 22 veterans. Think about that. In San Diego, we have an enormous issue because we lost 27 veterans between 2014 and 2015 that were age 45 and below. Take that in. Those are my brothers and sisters that I served with. This is something that I have addressed and I've seen personally, not only overseas, but here. I've held the hands of people that have suffered from this and survived suicide attempts. This is a very serious issue. A lot of you also don't know that San Diego also has the highest population of post 9/11 veterans in the entire nation. If we don't address this problem now, we will be addressing it 10 years from now. So I believe that reform for the VA, and if you are on a waiting list for more than 20 days, you deserve the health care. You need to go anywhere in order to get that health care, any doctor, and the government will pay for it. So one of the things I'm running on is VA reform, and I take it very seriously.
Thank you, Jackie. Over to Terry.
Again, your solution. You're gonna have the VA, you have the active military. We all have facilities and people that need care. You combine all of them, you put them under the umbrella of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It goes into the Pentagon, under the Joint Chiefs of Command and the Secretary of Chiefs. They handle it. Once the military takes control of caring for the military, we know will be taken care of. So that's an easy fix. Now, the next part of this is immediately anyone, any VA, any veteran that needs any assistance whatsoever anywhere on the planet today should be able to walk into any medical facility, anywhere, anytime. That's the fix.
Believe it or not, I think that we can go a very long way to fix this with a bill that would probably be maybe 1 or 2 pages. If I go to Congress, I'm going to write a bill, and we're going to revert every single employee in the Department of Veterans Affairs to probationary status for 1 year. When you join federal service as a federal employee, you go on probation for a year. You're effectively an at-will employee, which means you can be fired at will. We need to move all of the employees back to that status so that the higher-ups can actually get rid of people that need to be getting rid of. But we have a pretty good system here from what I'm hearing from the friends and people that I volunteer with in my community in Mira Mesa that are veterans. And the studies have shown that if you have a Veterans Administration paired with a university that has a medical school like UCSD, the outcomes are usually good, but the vast majority of veterans don't have access to that. Revert every single employee to probationary status. Get rid of the ones that we need to get rid of, and the VA will begin to work again.
Thank you, John. Over to Denise.
Yeah, I agree with John. This is one of those issues where the veterans of our nation, my parents, my father was a veteran, 20 years in the Air Force, they are the most precious and most worthy of our money, finances, support, everything it takes to make sure that they are taken care of for laying their life down on the line for us. And that is a non-negotiable. But unfortunately, that corruption within the VA system starts at the top. Secretary McDonald recently said that waiting times were down to 5, 3, and 4 days, depending on which kind of an issue you had for the VA. But in fact, it was discovered that and those days were actually 22 to 31 days. That's absolutely unacceptable, and so we must have a way out for our veterans. We must be able to give them an opportunity to escape this broken system that starts systemically from top to bottom. There's no way out. We must get them the health care they need, no matter where it's from, and we must be willing to pay that. So the very least we can do for people, put their life on the line for us all the time.
Thank you, Denise. Mike?
I can talk all night on this. I've gone up against the VA numerous times, just for myself. I think I'm the only person who's ever gone through book rehab that's actually gone to law school through that program for the VA, and I had to fight for that for 2 years. Something that I was entitled to, and that was up to the park. Participating. I went to an open house, a town hall meeting a few months ago. I think it was November of 2014. There were people there who were desperate to get help. Not only medically, but for the programs they deserve. The problem is there was nobody eloquent enough there to really say anything. And nobody really wanted to listen. I got up and said, look, this is what we need. And immediately, I had the press guy from the VA come down and say, hey, we need to talk to you about this. I can get their ear. I've fought these guys before. I know what we need to do. And as everybody on this panel can agree, you know, a lot of us are lives on the line for these benefits. A lot of people who are homeless need these benefits. A lot of people need these benefits, benefits. We need to shore it up. We need to take this seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you for your service as well. We're going to go ahead. This is our last question of the night before we move into closing remarks. I'm going to start with Mike. Actually, before we do that, one quick rapid fire question. Would you vote to repeal Obamacare? All right, fair enough. Starting with Mike, what would you replace it with, if anything?
Well, that's a tough question.
60 seconds, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine, that's right. I only have 60 seconds, good work. I'm not sure what we can replace it with yet, to be honest with you. I'm not gonna get up here and say we need this program or this program to make it work. What I do feel we need is we need to maybe move back to status quo before, to at least get the premiums down and to get rid of this ridiculous penalty that you have to pay if you don't have medical care. That's asinine. I'm sorry to use that word, but it is. You have to pay $2,000 for not having health care, and as I mentioned before, I have to get to the point where you have to pay a mortgage almost to have health care. That's substandard. I've read these gold, bronze, silver programs. I just don't understand it. And as somebody who is a husband, and I have 3 kids, I really have to sweat this out. And there are situations where people are taking jobs that are paying low wages because they need that health care. It's a choice of doing better in life or just getting the basic health care that you need. I'm not sure what to supplant it with yet, but I guarantee you, when I get to office, I will get a program. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie.
I've already touched upon this, so absolutely I would vote to repeal Obamacare. However, I would not do so that irresponsibly left millions of people without health care. So I believe that the answer is the reform of health care, the reform of Obamacare. So when I get in office, we work towards that reform to ensure that we lower costs and that all Americans can afford it.
Any questions on my barbell bill? Come on, sir. Bill, does everybody understand it then? You see how you're covered? People in the middle are lifting, the kids are covered, elders are covered. No free lunch. People in the middle have to do their thing, and then we take care of the people that need taken care of.
Do I get the extra 20? No. Obamacare. Well, here's what Obamacare has done. Obamacare is very quickly transforming our economy into a part-time worker economy, and that's what companies are doing to avoid the costs. And so now you have people working 2 part-time jobs, and they can't get the group policy from either. So this goes back to what I talked about the credit union. When we came out of the Great Depression, we had a banking problem. And so what we did, we took the idea of a credit union, we created a federal charter, and we allowed civil society to organize banking cooperatives, which we know to be credit unions. We'll take the same basic idea, create a federal charter, have 6 regional healthcare exchanges, and these are going to be nonprofits. And once you open an account, you hand that information to your employer. The employers will have a mandate, and the mandate will be tiered at 10, 20, 30, and 40 hours. So the 20-hour-a-week employee is going to get half of what the 40-hour-a-week employee gets. So if an employee has 2 part-time jobs, they're now in the same place to get a policy through that exchange.
Thank you, John. We'll have Denise close us out on this.
Obamacare is a fraud on the taxpayer. And in fact, it's a bad deal for even those immediately who are experiencing the negative effects on it. Younger people who are on Obamacare are paying 44% higher premiums. That's not a deal. That's certainly not something that we should be supporting. It's also Obama's interfering with the precious doctor-patient relationships that are so important to our specialized personalized healthcare, and they're interfering with our moral and religious conscience with respect to many, many different issues. And so we must repeal it, but if Republicans do not have a plan in place to immediately replace it, we will suffer exactly the consequences that we did with the incoming of Obamacare, which is that instead of proposing free market proposals that would have made it more competitive to get at lower costs to get health care for those who were not covered, we let the Democrats take the lead and propose their decisions, their ideas, and we were seen as those who were uncaring about those who could not afford health care. So the onus is upon us to propose realistic solutions that are free market based, that are affordable, that will actually work, instead of letting Democrats take up that cause. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. And we're now going to move into the closing statements from the candidates. I'd like each candidate to take, say, 75 seconds. Tell us why you are the best person to defeat Scott Peters and represent us in the 52nd Congressional District. You can speak to the strength of your own campaigns or exactly why you fit the district. 75 seconds to give us your pitch. Denise.
Closing arguments are my favorite. I'm a recovering attorney, so there we go. So this district is a Republican district. We have always been a Republican district. We have a 1.5% Republican registration advantage, and I am the only candidate endorsed by the NRCC, the National Republican Congressional Committee, as a young gun in this race. That is critical because we are running against the fourth wealthiest member of Congress, Scott Peters, who has the full support of the Democratic Party in trying to take this seat again from under himself. Now, I have raised, I just put out a press release yesterday, I have raised 5 times more than all of my Republican candidates up here combined. They are all incredible candidates, and I'm proud to be next to them up here. But the reality is, if we want to win this race, we must not only have a message that resonates with people, we must also have a message that we can amplify. If nobody knows what we stand for, we cannot win. We must have the resources necessary to proliferate our message, which is freedom, which is true hope, which is the free market, which is not government in your lives imposing their solutions and taking your money to do that. And so if we're going to win, we must absolutely stand by principle. And I think one thing that everyone in this presidential race and all of these races across the country really, really are looking for is a candidate who stands by their principles. You're hiring somebody for a job, and that's to represent you, not special interests in Washington. And I will be that candidate. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Mike.
Well, I tell you what, this is my introduction to the debate. It's very interesting. Why me? I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a taxpayer, I'm somebody who served my country. Maybe, in a sense, maybe a little bit more than some, less than others. But I'm worried about the government being involved in every aspect of our lives. I just don't like the idea. I'm one of those people, though I have to tell you, I used to be described as, ask for forgiveness instead of begging permission. But I don't like this idea of this overreaching government. Healthcare, Common Core in school. I mean, we've got private industry putting together educational programs and taking away the talents in our classroom to actually being able to teach things. We're teaching children to teach to the test. And that trickles down to education and H-1B visas. If we're not doing the right things in schools, not teaching the right things in classes, of course we're going to have to go outside and get somebody else. When it comes to Islamic terrorism, ISIS, national defense, I worked with SOCOM, Special Operations Joint Task Force. I know where they are. I know how they act, and I know we're not funding it correctly. And we're still not taking the council seriously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So like I said, I'm a combat veteran, a wounded warrior, and a businesswoman. I'm a woman that's run a company quite successfully. And I'm going to tell you the numbers. I'm going to tell you about a poll that was just done. And that polled the 3 top Republican candidates in this race. And you know what that poll told us? That I am the only Republican candidate that can beat Scott Peters. Only Republican. That is your key takeaway tonight. If we want to take this seat back, I'm the only Republican that can beat him. And I cannot wait to stand on that stage with him. Scott Peters is afraid of me. Scott Peters is upset, and I'll tell this to DCCC, because he told me 10 years ago I should have been in city council next to him. Well, you know where I was 10 years ago? I was in a fighting hole defending this nation. I'm the only one who has the real world experience, not only in business, but taking on ISIS, even today, just as I did in 2003, crossing that line of departure as a young lieutenant. I served our nation. I support the taxpayer today as a businesswoman. I support the fight on Islamic terrorism, and I'm the one to take back this seat, but I can't do this alone. So please, I need each and every one of your help. Go to JackieAtkinson.com. Give me a call, post a coffee, I'll come and sit down with you, or any of your neighbors, and I would love to earn your support. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Jackie. Terry?
Thank you all very much for coming. This is, now I'm coming up on an hour in politics, which is great. I will tell you, since you most probably have never done this either, it sounds the same there as it does here. Lots of talking, not a lot of solutions, so that's kind of where we're at. I got into this race because I want to run on Reagan values and common sense. And we can talk about money, we can talk about career politicians, and we can talk about lawyers. And when you do that, take a look at our country right now. That's why we are where we are. So the only way to change that is to go for citizen politicians. I'll probably raise the least. And I'm really not looking to raise a lot, because that's not what it's all about. If it was, Jeb Bush would still be in the race. And Hillary wouldn't be losing to an open communist. Now would she? So really take a look at how this goes, because all of us want to go out and do our things and take care of our families and get on with our lives. And if you don't put the right person in there, we're not going to be able to do that. We're going to have to come right back again and go through this whole drill again. So be very cognizant of your vote, and don't waste any time trying to convince anybody else that disagrees with you. Spend all of your time dealing with like-minded people and getting them to vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry. John?
Yes, thank you as well for coming tonight. Last year, Scott Peters offered a bill. In this bill, Scott Peters is suggesting that we calculate our national debt only by the debt, quote, held by the public. 15% of our national debt is held by the Social Security Trust Fund. That debt doesn't count in Scott Peters' bill. I'm the only candidate up here who understands the ins and the outs of how our debt is affecting our fiscal policy, understanding the ins and the outs of how the bond market works, and why Scott Peters' proposal is so shockingly ignorant and dangerous, and actually dangerous to the value of the Social Security Trust Fund. I'm the only candidate up here that understands how Washington and Wall Street have this little money laundering game going on. I'm the only candidate up here that can and will go to Washington, D.C., and forgive me for the term, but call BS on Wall Street. Somebody has to go and call BS on Wall Street, whether the party likes it or not. But that means that you're going to have to send somebody who will call BS on borrow and spend politicians. I'm that candidate. I'm the only candidate that has a record of accomplishment in our local communities, who understands what our local leader needs from their congressional representation so they can solve problems here.
Thank you, John. At this time, I'd like to ask the audience to give the candidates a round of applause. As I mentioned earlier, it is not easy to be the person in the arena, so thank you guys all for participating tonight. We have a few minutes before the candidates probably need to take off to get to the next event. I'd like to invite you to come up, introduce yourself to the candidates, and if there's a candidate you like, please get involved in their campaign. And not just get involved in the Republican campaign through June, stay with the party all the way through November, get involved and support the eventual nominee. Thank you for coming out tonight. I'd like to make one more introduction. Cheryl Rosander. Cheryl, would you raise your hand? Cheryl, if you're interested in supporting the Ted Cruz campaign, Cheryl is the chair here in Coronado. Please go see her.
San Diego County co-chair. Please see me if you're interested.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. And if you want to participate in this club going forward, please sign up. Please add your name and email to the list in the back. Thank you all.
Are you this gentleman's campaign
Dirty Dim. That's funny.
Yeah,